Zeb Samuels. Welcome to Electronic Music Live.
Hello, pleasure to
How
be
you going?
here. Yeah, no, I'm very good, thank you. Very good. How's your day been so far?
It's the end of the day here, and I know you're starting your day.
I'm starting my day the best possible way, of course.
Yes, and the UK's nice and sunshine. I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's sort of cloudy, but
well, okay.
It's
but
the sun.
There's been some heat though. There's been some heat.
Yeah. Look, we've had a hot summer, but yeah, no, it's been nice, but today is quite humid, but the sun is sort of there behind the clouds somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you heading off anywhere around Europe? Have you got a break coming up?
Not at the moment, but I'm actually coming down under.
Yes,
in December.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
because I've got some sort of the only family I have left there is my auntie, my dad's sister. But I've got some people that my dad's sort of friends that are out there. So yeah, I'll be coming to Sydney. I think it's like the 1st of December I arrive. I think I fly out on November, but I haven't had a holiday for God knows how long.
So are you coming for a break or is there?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Great.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. No, I'll just be hitting the beach every day, and that's the plan. Other than that,
and where's your auntie's place at?
She's sort of I think it's Newtown.
Okay. Nice. Right on.
But my family, like my grandma used to live on in Edgecliff.
Okay. And, so you know the city. You know the city.
Yes, fairly well. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, when I'm there, all I'm doing is Bondi Beach is most days, or I used to go up to Camp Cove as well, which I really love that place. And Watson's Bay and stuff. So yeah, no,
nice.
I love it.
Awesome. You've come a few times?
Yeah, when I was younger, we used to come out every year when my grandparents were alive. But yeah, no, I've been a lot. I mean, I haven't been since 2017. But yeah, no, I'm missing the beach a lot, and yeah, and the food is always amazing. I love Sydney now to do food.
Yeah, good cafe culture, restaurant culture here.
Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Coogee, which is not far from Bondi. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, well, if you're around, we'll definitely be nice to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, are you coming out here for any sort of music ventures, anything related to the label?
No, not so much. No. I like. When I go on holiday, most of the time, I mean, I'll do obviously a bit of work when I'm there, sort of, just making sure I get, sort of in touch with stuff. But the idea is not to do much work and try and sort of switch off. Yeah, exactly.
Are you coming solo or with family?
My brother and sister are going to be out here at the same time. Okay. We don't normally travel at the same time. She's got kids, my sister.
Okay.
So, we're sort of like over the, I think 22nd to the 27th, we're in Jarvis Bay.
Oh, nice.
I've never been there myself, but I think it's about an hour away or something from Sydney. So, yeah, fingers crossed that should be nice.
Beautiful. Well, look, I wanted to talk a bit about. I want to talk about your label.
Yes,
and chat about your bit of history and the, I guess from an A&R point of view as well, like the creative process of what kind of sounds that you want to define, and also you as an artist, what does your show consist of? Like if you wanted to experience a Zeb Samuels performance, what is in your show?
What you mean?
You're a vocalist. Yeah. What's a live show?
To be honest with you, I haven't. I don't really consider myself a performer.
Okay.
Like my creative process, I definitely consider myself a writer first and foremost. And I just sort of happened to sort of fall into doing solo stuff. It was never really like a dream of mine as such, you know. But I just sort of fell into it when I was doing some more studio work with one of my signings, Ash Walker, and we would we had a studio in not too far from me in Crouch Hill, at North London, and I used to play with like instruments when I was younger, but then when I was about 13, I sort of, you know, regrettably gave up piano, trumpet, drums, and got into DJing because that was like the cool thing to do, right? But then, yeah, when I was in the studio, I just picked up piano again and started improvising, and I was like, oh right, yeah, this is really cool. And at the time, my dad was quite sick, and it was just a really like a good time for me to sort of have a creative outlet. And yeah, I just, you know, me and Ash sort of went our separate ways in terms of what we were doing with the label, and as you know, because I was involved a lot. I was sort of unofficial executive producer, you know, in the process, and yeah, I really enjoyed. I mean, I've always been involved, you know, as a label A&R with the artist music that comes out on the label, but more just sort of subtle touches like, oh, look, have you thought about that? Or, you know, you might need a lead there, or, you know, sort of directing the sound a little bit, you know. But realized that, yeah, I just sort of needed to, yeah, have more of a creative outlet and just enjoyed the process. But it was never really like, oh, I'm going to try and perform here and become an artist as such. It was just like I just needed for my soul to be making music and writing music, you know?
Mm-mm. Yeah, so yeah, in terms of the catalog, you've got quite like there's there's definitely a lot of different sounds happening that you're sort of pushing, but there are three distinct kind of like areas that I can describe as sort of like, you know, a bit of garagey drum and bass, and then you've got dubstep, ambient,
Yes.
jazz. There's a lot of stuff weaving here now.
Totally.
Yeah, and tell me a bit about the process, like when, like for what you really want to be, like what is it that you want to be defining your label? Like what is the sound that you're really wanting to push? Like if, you know, I mentioned all those sounds, but
yes,
but yeah, you explain it from your words.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite nice the fact that you were unable to define it as such, and you know, picked up on the diversity, which is sort of what it's about. You know, like we actually started off being solely a dubstep label because at the time it was like 2010, and I was quite involved in the dubstep scene at the time, and it was just sort of, I'd say, a natural progression, but just sort of what we started out doing. It was actually called Dubstep for Deepheads, was the original name of the label. But as sort of time went on, I just wanted it to sort of, I guess, represent my taste, because and my passions, you know, because I listen to a lot of different stuff. I don't just, obviously, wasn't just listening to dubstep, but dubstep and bass music is a massive part of my, you know, makeup as such. But as time went on and, you know, we would get different stuff in, I just never really wanted to be like pigeonholed as such and be like, oh, look, we only do this and we only do that. When I changed it to Deepheads as well, the name, it was always about just being deep music influenced. You know, that was always the thread, you know, because I feel like deeper influenced music, you know, whether it be house or jazz, there seems to be a thread. Well, definitely within my mind, I'm like, if I listen, I'll listen to jazz, and then I'll listen to an ambient record, and then I'll listen to I don't know, maybe even some R&B or something that I can hear like, oh yeah, there's definitely like something connecting here. But mainly just sort of slower, deeper music that you can chill out and smoke a doobie to, sort of thing, Sure. if that was sort of like the thread, that would be it. But
right.
Yeah, I always sort of just wanted it to reflect my passion and my heart as such, of what the stuff that I was feeling and the stuff that resonates with me. And luckily, I guess I was always a bit scared as such, to be like, oh, we're a dubstep label, but we're branching into all these different stuff. And there wasn't like, I wouldn't say a resistance, but I definitely noticed that some of the other stuff that we're doing wasn't getting as much sort of love as such, or like had the same momentum. But I always knew that it was like, look, it would take some time to sort of move and remold ourselves as a deeper influenced label, rather than just a specific genre sort of thing.
When did you think that switch happened? When did that crossover? When you felt like, okay, we're going in this direction now?
I think it was probably when I signed Ash round about like 2000. I think it was end of 2014. That was quite a prominent sort of like, oh right, okay, we're moving totally in this other direction, and there was a lot of funds and heart, soul, blood, sweat, tears that went into that project. That felt like, okay, yeah, we're now a different label. Now we're not just a label that does sort of electronic music and one person behind the computer type things. It was that the idea with the Ash Walker project was always like, let's just make big produced music, studio based, musician based, session musicians, and let's make it as big as possible and really sort of go at it, from a sort of a musical and production standpoint,
Well, I mean, as you know, I've been a supporter of the show on my show, like supporter of the label quite regularly.
Thank you very much for that, sir.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm really enjoying some of the. I have actually. I think initially that's how I came across your label, was through Ash Walker's work, and then,
right, okay, yeah,
and then after, was receiving music from you about from a lot of these sort of new current names that you've got now, like is Liminka?
Liminka, yes.
Liminka and Biome, Synchro. Yep. Mm-hmm. This is amazing stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really deep.
Yes.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the these releases, and
thank you.
And you've been at it for what, a good decade or so now, as the label.
Yeah.
And go on.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, I started off. Deep Heads. I think it was 2010. It was established.
Yes. Right. So just over a decade. So we're 12 years in, and you've now, I think got quite a decent catalog there, and discography, and it must feel great to look back at that now and seeing the like the order of what's gone and the journey to get this far.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, tell me a bit about that. Tell me a bit about that ride.
What you mean about the nostalgically looking back at the catalog?
Yeah. How does that make you feel? And like,
it's I'm very proud of all the music that we've put out. And every release in some form is connected to me. And some, the always the premise of what I release is like, if it needs to resonate with me, and if it doesn't, then don't release it. That's always, that's always the sort of the premise of what I try and achieve with the releases. But yeah, no, I mean, it's great. We've gone on a real journey of sounds, and I guess it's sort of, I'm rewarded with it as such when artists will send me stuff and like artists that I'm, talking to and stuff. And, I have it where I can hear the work as such, it's like if I talk to a certain artist and they give me something and you're like, oh, right, they're in tune. They know they've heard the previous stuff, and it ends up being this mold of like where we are today. Not always, but I think that's always, I feel that's a really rewarding moment when you like you don't have to say anything. You're just sort of like, okay, we're deep.
Yeah.
Can you do an EP for us, or a remix or something, and they produce something, and you're like, oh yeah, they get it. They understand where we're at. That's always really beautiful.
Yeah. And I guess that's what you're describing is being able to you're providing a platform, but also having artists that come forward, or when you're seeking artists, like trying to keep that narrative, like this, I guess the story that you want to tell with the releases and what you're trying to push here. I mean, this sort of approach in this day and age too, like it's kind of arguably a different way that the way people like. I mean, it's more in modern times now where people are running labels that are based on the things that they love, right? Where rather than sort of pushing sounds that are going to be pop culture and be received in these bigger. So that in itself is a commitment and a journey and a road to a path to choose, to do that. And it's a totally it's a brave path to choose. And
it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, that's
especially
right.
At the beginning, especially at the beginning. Because that's, I mean, I think
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think the reality of, the commercial world and the way that people think is always, most of the time, it's based on sort of like very superficial stuff, like you go to certain artists for certain sounds, and if you're doing something a bit different, then how are people going to latch onto it if there's no thread, But I mean, I was always very much inspired by, I guess, Giles Peterson. He's a big influence of mine in terms of like listening to him on his radio shows and stuff, and the fact that he always just a place to play random, really what sounded like random stuff, but for me, it's like it was a similar thought of, there was a thread within it. It was stuff that obviously he loved.
Yes.
But I think if you are an avid listener, you can hear certain things that he is joining dots with. And I was very much inspired by that sort of notion of, okay, look, if you do some different stuff and people follow you because they trust your ear, which I believe is one of my assets as a label manager, then the rest is history, sort of thing. And I guess what I've sort of, wouldn't go as far as say proved it, but like I'm living that reality of like, at first I was definitely like, oh God, we're, as I say, a dubstep label and bass music and known for that sort of stuff. But it's sort of, as cliche as it sounds, it's like I always had the notion of like, build it and they will come, and I was like, if you can keep just your head strong on like, okay, look, my ear's good, I know good music, and if you put out good music, people are going to receive it, and then people will latch onto the label a little more and then be involved in just sort of consuming what we release because we've released good stuff in the past. But you have to have the past, but and you have to be patient to sort of to do that, and it's tough. It's not easy, at first, especially when you're plowing loads of money into something and putting all this energy in, and you're not necessarily seeing that direct comeback. It's a tough process, but I guess I've been around long enough to see that, if you keep on if consistency is like the main thing in music, and if you just keep going and believe in yourself, then hopefully the rest will fall into place, So
definitely consistency sounds like has been the driving force there. It's just like knowing what you want, being knowing your vision and having. I mean, it doesn't always work out the way we first set it out, right? Like you said, you started out with a dubstep vision, and it's metamorphosed like along the way, like it's transformed along the way to something else that I guess it starts to reflect the ride that you're on, the journey that you're on, and it unfolds accordingly. Was like this is now a full-time gig for you, right? Like this is your job.
Yeah, pretty much. I like my sort of day-to-day processes, running the label in the day, and then at night I do my own stuff and write when I'm sort of not as methodical in my thinking, and I like the energy of the night to write. But yeah, in the day I'm sort of doing admin and bits and pieces to sort of make sure that the label sort of ticks over and stuff,
Yeah. And the stuff the kind of writing that you're doing is your own creations. Is that correct? Your own music?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't really write for anyone else. I think about sometimes doing it, but I'm just like, I'm such a difficult person. I'm like, do you know what? Forget about it. Like, I'll do my own thing in my own time. And I'm not sure if I'm sort of built for the whole producing and writing for other people. I do enjoy collaborating with other people, but I've just got a very set vision of what I'm doing and when I do it,
Yeah. And the whole production side of things and writing for yourself, that's a rediscovery. Like that's something that's happened in recent years.
Yes.
It's not like from the beginning of the label. It's just something that's come about that.
Yeah.
And because you mentioned before, you're rediscovering piano again and finding that love there.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I used to play a lot of instruments when I was younger. But then I did like an audio and engineering course at SAE when I was about 18 and learned how to, do all the studio stuff and production and stuff. And I used to dabble when I was like, around about sort of that age, with Reason and like one of the real early Logic. I think 5.1 was the one I was using before I moved on to like Logic Pro X, the recent one. But I mean, these days is so simple compared to what it was back in the day, when I was learning how to use Akai samplers and outboard gear and stuff. But that, there was a basis, learning about MIDI and all the rest of it. So it was, and it was good to work, worked in some like big studios. They had like a Neve and an SSL studio. And I remember them saying to me, like at the time, they were like, you're never going to use this like probably ever again in your life. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, and it's very true. I've never stepped in a studio like that in my life afterwards. But my setup is super simple. Like I've got a Nord Electro. I was just checking a 4D Virus TI synth. And microphone, sound card, obviously, speakers, and that's it. And my laptop, obviously. But it's these days. It's very, very simple to make a to get going on production. The software is so simple.
Mm-hmm. Now with the early days of your label. As well, like, tell me, like, an early story of how you got started, like how it came about to get it off the ground, and some of the commitments and the balancing act and the things that you did back then to keep pushing the needle forward, and sort of getting it off the ground.
A story here.
Yeah, I bet. Let's go.
Well, I used to be in distribution. I used to run a distribution company that used to be, it's called Z Audio, and we used to do a lot of vinyl records.
Okay.
So I started that around about 2003. And then we used to do a lot of breaks. I imagine you're familiar, breaks being an Aussie boy.
Mm-hmm. It's a huge scene here.
Yeah, no, it's still going, right?
Yeah, it's still
bits
there.
And pieces. I know some of the finger licking lot still do a few, Plump DJs and
they come out. They come out. They tour. They and there's sort of break reunion parties and stuff.
Yes,
and a lot of my old mates who were pushing that sound back then were they bring dust off their DJ boots and come out and play and And there's still a scene and diehard fans, because it was definitely
big.
It was a very big period in dance music culture in Sydney.
Totally.
Across the country, it was very prominent, like early 2000s.
I remember going into like Westfield and like going into some clothes shops and I'm like, oh my God, that's a breakbeat song. I was like, sick. This is great. This is fantastic. This is really kicking off. I started off doing that. And then like when dubstep sort of was happening around like more, not the early stuff, but more like 2007, I think was when I started a few labels in my own company because it was sort of the only way to get a foothold in the dubstep market. And I started a label called Audio Freaks, On the Edge, Smoking Sessions, which I still run today, and On the Edge I still run as well.
These names all sound very familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot of like we would do. I come from like a drum and bass sort of background as such, or just a London bass music background, and people like Bar 9 were big on the like Nero. We would put a lot of old like first Nero records before they blew up and stuff, and then people like Synchro and DJ Rum, Indigo, a lot of sort of early sort of dubstep names around about 2007. But already by that time, like I had quite a big operation, and we had, the way that a lot of dance music distributors at the time were doing stuff, it was like we'd do like 10 releases a week, and that's the way that people were consuming music. Previously, you go into a record shop and then someone would say, "Oh, look, we got this and we got that," and that sort of the tide was totally changing when recession hit 2008. Digital revolution was big. People were coming off vinyl quite a lot, and the way that I was operating the business wasn't, it was becoming like I was losing money, and I was putting money trying to sort of keep it afloat, and got to the point where I was like, you know what, this might not be working anymore. But luckily, I had the labels that I had started, before that process, and decided to sort of, go be a bit more creative and concentrate on the labels rather than everyone else's logistics that I was involved in for years, which I was quite happy to get out of, in all honesty. It was an absolute nightmare. Pressing records is not a fun task. When we had a pressing plant next door to us, but there was all sorts of problems. I mean, like, it's an ancient technology. I mean, anyone that presses vinyl knows that it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So I was happy to get away from that and be a bit more creative. And then that's when I just started off the Deephead sort of brand, and then the rest sort of fell into place as such, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that and that was, I guess, the time too when dubstep was really sort of popping as well. Like it started to. I remember hearing like this was going to be the new sound, and I didn't quite get it at the beginning. You know, like I was just like, there's only. I was confused a bit, you know, with the dubstep sound. Like I was just like because there were so many like little branches of it sort of coming off, and
Totally.
and they were the ones that were confusing me. Like I think like there were sounds that were not quite like, and still today I didn't quite like, you know, didn't become part of my musical palette, but things like for me Marla and Zed Bias that were, you know, they were kind of doing these sounds that I could connect with, you know, because they were bringing all these like world sounds and they're bringing jazz elements and for me that was fresh, you know, there was like a new way of doing things, you know. Yeah, I didn't realize, you know, your history that much, and thank you for sharing that. Like, we have a similar, like, that sounds very similar to my early years. I was working in distribution as well in Australia.
Oh, nice. Who did you work for? Inertia?
No, a company called Creative Vibes.
I hadn't heard of them.
Yeah, who at the time, they'd been around at this point for about 15, 16 years already. And this was like mid 2000s. Right. And at this point, they were very responsible for, you know, really shaping independent music. So a lot of the things that we received in Australia from, you know, early 90s all the way through to the mid to even 2007, like the music, like all that independent, you know, electronic music and jazz and funk and soul. Yeah. Creative Vibes were very responsible for this. You know,
that's what happened, isn't it? That's the way people consume music, right?
Yeah, and the Massive Warehouse, like vinyl for days. You know, it was it was sad to see it. They were so well equipped for that culture and that era. Totally. You know, and then they just like Inertia came along, all these other labels came along, and they just like weren't able to sort of keep the dream alive, unfortunately.
It's not an easy game, is it?
It's not. It's not. And it was a whole different era, you know, different change. You know, Australia's music scene now today is just, I think, in a really good place. I think it's it's just a lot of great music coming back, and it's been nice to come back to Australia. I've been overseas for the last 10 years, so coming back into this is, you know, brand new chapter. You know, it's quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely sort of a moany old man, you know, when the whole vinyl sort of business, you know, people used to consume music differently, blah blah blah. But I've definitely settled in to the, you know, the Spotify's and the way that people are consuming it, and like my palette of music that I listen to these days is a lot stronger and a lot more diverse than anything that I would have consumed back on physical product back in the day. You know, I mean, there's pros and cons to the, you know, both sides, but in terms of the consumer listening experience now, on like personally, I'm a Spotify user. I love it. It's amazing. You know, you've got the release radar that tells you every time, you know, something new comes up from someone. The web that you're in, you know, I come across music that I'm just like, wow, it's amazing. It's at like the abundance of music and good music as well. I'm fully in. I mean, I absolutely love Spotify. I know there's a place for physical product, you know, but you know, that for me, Spotify. I'm a Spotify junkie.
Yeah.
Shoot me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a dirty
it
word.
Gets me. It really understands who I am. It
Exactly.
knows what
I'm
I like.
oh, what? You know that I like that. Yeah, sweet, nice one. You know, you're even the Discover Weekly and stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Totally.
yeah, there's definitely there's some things to be said about the algorithm being the creator and the only force within Spotify, but it's bloody good. It knows its shit.
Yeah.
It knows its
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day about tracking and the amount of not just just across the web in general, like the amount of tracking that goes on for agencies and the technology that's behind Spotify,
Right.
that understands the so many nuances. It's quite frightening, but I mean, okay, they're figuring out what I like. Big deal, you know. If I think if you can detach, I think because you know sometimes we see ads and things that pop up based on where we were and what we listened to and what time of day and I mean it even goes down to as far as like feeding you music to affect your mood. So to affect your buying power, like it goes to that, like to that extent, right. The technology. Yeah. So it's pretty scary.
I know. I mean, personally, I just switch off to it, you know, and I'm just like, oh, it's not happening. Just, you know, like, but there was, you know, like I indulge in the good, you know, the good things. Like even on Instagram, you like see stuff and you're like, you know, I've got my Zeb Samuels profile that I only just set up recently. And then like it doesn't know me as well as my Deepheads profile in terms of, and I'm like, where's all the ads that I like? What's going on? You know, like, you know, it should know that I wanted that stupid pillow that was good for my neck. You know, what's going on? Where is it gone? So yeah, you know, I've sort of just let it get on with it, you know. But there's definitely some things to be said about that much of tracking. Might not be good for the universe, but you know, whatever, we're in it, you know. And
I think that's what we're kind of we're entering in an era where the human needs to learn. It's like practicing a muscle to be able to like switch out of the matrix. You know, like if you just like stay in it, you're just going to be like lost in it. You know, so if you keep on training yourself to learn how to like detach, you know.
this is the beauty of the Matrix is you don't know when you're in it. You know, they're so fucking clever that excuse my language, but they're so clever that you're just like you don't even know what reality is anymore. But anyway, look, that's another can of worms. Yeah.
So are you releasing vinyl at all through the label now? Are you going to be doing any vinyl
bits
releases?
and pieces? I mean, I did a couple of reissues recently this year. We did a DJ Rum record, which was his first ever record that we re-released, Tension and Plead With Me, on the Edge. We re-released that, and that sold really well. I mean, we sold nearly 1,000 or something within the first couple of months. And then there was another one that we did, a Chrome Star record that his first ever album that I was involved in that was on Dubstar. And that was around 2010. But those were the things I knew there was sort of demand on. But in all honesty, I look back, you know, like they were good and we made a little bit of money from it, but it wasn't like, you know, if I look back at it, it's like the Plants really made some money. I mean, it was just, the process I went through was a hell of a lot of work, and I feel like it was quite environmentally taxing. You know, we had the records came from France, they came in through a lorry, and then the Plants, because there's such a demand on vinyl at the moment, I thought they'd take advantage of it. Like I was quoted a price on it, and it came, you know, it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 grand or something like that, and then it was like 20% higher when they pressed it. And I was like, hey, guys, come on. This is ridiculous. Like, you quoted me quite a high price. You've made me wait nearly a year for my record, and now you're putting up 20%. Like, what? You know, how can I deal with this as a business? I've already put it out as a certain price, and now, you know, it's changing. So I felt really angry at that whole process of, you know, and I think the plants have got the mentality of like, look, if you don't like it, I've got 20 more customers in the queue. So like it or lump it. And I was really angry about that. And I think the reality is that, you know, I know no one really likes to talk about it, but it is very environmentally taxing, you know, pressing a vinyl. And like, I think there's a place for it. There's no doubt about it. A vinyl record sounds totally different to what you're going to hear digitally created. And I've been involved in vinyl for a long time. And I appreciate and love the sound of a good vinyl. But I feel like as a label now, I'm like, do you know what? We will do some vinyl, but it's going to be a a minimum. And it has to be a very special product and something that people really want. And also something that I know that is going to sell out and be a venture that's worthwhile participating in for my artist and us as a label, because it is very time consuming and and long shelf life, you know, something that people would want, like it will be there, like a, you know, people want to buy it in 10 years. Like if totally. That's the direction, you know, like a record that you got to have it on vinyl, you know? Yeah, exactly. And I think, like that, the DJ Rum record and the Chrome Star record, it's like, you hear it and you're like, that makes sense on vinyl. Like it's so driven so heavily by bass and that translates within vinyl. You know, there's nothing that would translate bass.
How do you tell an artist that, you know, I'm not going to give it to you on vinyl. This is kind of
normally the environment is a good one to throw at them.
Okay,
because, you know, they're a bit like, okay, cool, no, but
we can't do it against climate change. You know,
they can't really argue against that. And that is actually the reality. But I think the reality, like 9 times out of 10, which I really actually despise about the vinyl business, is that it's not about the consumption of the music. It's about the artist having their vinyl on their wall and being like, I pressed it. You only sold 3 copies, but look, I got, you know, look, mum, I got my vinyl. It looks great, doesn't it? So that I feel like, you know, it's like, and they've got 300 records sitting in their garage or something. Oh man, that's not cool. Like there's a lot of energy that's being, you know, used for that. But I think, look, at the end of the day, I understand. Like my first record, my first album, I put it on vinyl. But then the second one, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it because it was just, you know, I don't think also my music's necessarily like a vinyl, you know, market as such. You know, it's not necessarily say like I need that on vinyl. But yeah, I think that the whole process of it just, you just say it needs to be something that people can sort of buy, and then in 10 years or something, you know, that's the records you want to be sort of focused on, the classics and stuff you can make a nice package out of. And, you know, it's like the Chrome Star record was over 10 years old, and that made sense that, and it was a seminal album. And it was something that over time that was like, oh, right, this is a fantastic record. So those sort of things make more sense than just like, oh, let's press a new, like the next release on vinyl and see how it goes. There needs to be, you know, reason for doing it, I think, you know.
Is the vinyl production process improved for you now? Like, I mean, it sounds like you've had challenges. It hasn't. Okay, yeah, right.
I just think there's just so. I mean, look, the reality is there's so many cogs in that wheel, you know, and the materials are going up and up and up and up for everyone. So the price is just continuing to go up. But yeah, I mean, I just think that anything can happen with a vinyl record, you know. You can, and there's so many people within the process, and no one wants to take responsibility when it goes wrong. You know, it's nothing worse than, you know, you're getting some pops on your record and you'd be like, Who's done that? Where's it come from? And the engineer's like, no, well, it's fine on our end. And then the pressing plant's like, we haven't done it, and that's always a bit.
Everyone's passing the buck.
Oh, it's a nightmare. That's always the worst. And then but yeah, there's there's a market in vinyl, and I respect the vinyl market. But I just guess I had the way I look at it is I had a long career within it. It sort of I did well out and had a good career out of it for nearly 10 years. So it's time and it's not as though I don't think people are necessarily missing out. It's like they can consume all the music that we release digitally. We make sure that it's all available. So, that's the main thing, right? The music.
Mm. But it certainly has taken a new life for vinyl culture again.
Yes.
It's I don't think it's going to disappear.
No, it's got a place. For sure. It's got a place.
Yeah, for sure. It's a different type of consumption behind it now, but it's still there, and and then even just for the regular user, people buying turntable for their home studio and wanting to buy their own like records for that whole experience. That
it's a lot more intimate. There's no doubt.
For sure.
And mixing records. I mean, I can't. I still can pick up my old records, and that's what I'll be mixing. I don't like the feel of CDJs. I mean, I can sort of get on with it a little bit, but there's nothing like knowing and having that little light, that tells you where the drop's going to be. You're going to be like, oh right, yeah, it's coming. Like you can time it. I love that. And there's nothing like a feel of a vinyl and the smell and just the whole digitized world is not the most fun. I mean, if I still DJ'd, I'd probably still be on vinyl to some extent. But I'd probably be touring a lot, everywhere. So like, there'd only be a certain amount of luggage I could take. So maybe I would do digital, but hey, no, I'm messing with you. It's difficult, getting onto the main stage at Glastonbury with your vinyl records, It's logistics you've got to think about.
Yeah. It's a hard life.
Yeah, totally. One can dream, eh?
It's it. Well, Zeb, it was a pleasure chatting with you today.
Yes,
I'm glad that we got to. And I'm glad we got to actually meet face to face as well, virtually. But all good. We've been chatting on email for quite some time, on and off.
Yes.
Look, I'm looking forward to more music from you guys. So keep it coming through.
That is a certification. 100%. I'll be sending you some new music in the future with that.
Awesome.
100%. Just quickly, we've got, just to let you know, I don't know if you saw, we've got this Cosmic Vibrations 3 that is coming out around September, which is loads of different artists. They've got Fever King. There's something from Bonobo, Lux, and loads of other deep artists as well.
Yep. Nice.
So that should be interesting. But that's sort of coming out around about end of September. Sorry, shameless plug, I know.
That's all good. All good. That's why I'm here.
Totally. No, I appreciate your time.
That's why I do this podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Actually, Bonobo is going to be performing in Sydney this weekend. Actually.
Oh, nice.
Simon's in town.
You have to see. I saw his show in the Royal Albert Hall when he was in London, and it was pretty. The light show that he does is just incredible. It's really, really good, and it sort of feels like it's sort of like a mini rave. Sort of he goes in. When the dance music comes on in his sets, it's got a lot of dynamics. But But then you can sort of you go home at a reasonable hour. You're like, oh, this is fantastic. I haven't, I can get home and be in bed by 11. It's great, and I just feel like I've indulged in some really heavy bass music. It's great. It's very good. I hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. Well, again, thank you, Zeb, and
thank you.
Keep the music coming, keep the good times rolling.
And you as well. Much love. Much respect for all the things you're doing, man.
Thank you.
Take care,
All the
James.
best. Bye-bye.
See ya.